Really cool game. That's
Hi, everyone. Hello. Can you hear me in the back? Am I just a wee whiz a bit higher? Okay. Is this gonna? How's this? How's this for a volume? Can you hear me? Okay. Good. Okay. Welcome, everyone. It's lovely to see you here. You made it in the cold December rain. My name is Lori Graham. I am the publisher of Brick Magazine, and I'm here to say a few words before we throw it to our host. I'm so glad to see you here for this, the launch of BRIC's winter issue 114. I would like to just tell you a few things off the top. First, if you could right now just remember to turn your cell phones to silent. That would be great. I'm resisting the urge to gush about this issue. I think Michael's going to do a little bit of that, but I do want to thank him, Michael Helm, Liz Johnston, Dion Brand, David Cheriandy, and Madeline Tien, BRIC's editors. I would like to thank, yes, please. I want to give enormous thanks to Rachel Gary and Orly Zibak, the assistant editor, managing editor of BRIC, who taught the work that they do. And I want to thank all of you for being here, being a supporter and a reader. More on that in a minute. I want to also acknowledge the land that we're on. Mississaugas of the Credit land, Anishinaabeg land, Haudenosaunee, Huron-Wendat, Williams Treaty land. I want to switch very quickly to say that Canada Post is on strike, as you know. A few items of business that I need to share with you about that one. Subscribers, those of you in the room who are currently subscribers, you can come and pick up your issue here tonight. Just come talk to Rachel. There she is, waving at you now. Say your name to her. She will type it in a thing and then hand you your issue. So please do that before you leave. If you are not a subscriber, subscribe. Tonight is the night to do it. We need you to buy. We need you to renew your subscriptions. 'Tis the season to give gifts of BRIC. Ask Rachel about gift subscriptions. She can hook you up with that as well. And very importantly, we need you to donate. The Canada Post strike has had a bit of an effect on BRIC, as it has for many different organizations. This is the time of year when people buy, when people give gifts to each other, and when people donate to the magazine. So you can do that tonight as well. You can walk up again to Rachel, there she is, and say, holy smokes, I want to give you $100 to $200. And she will take it. She will take cash. We can do up a square payment. You can just tap whatever you want. So please consider doing that tonight. Please also make sure that you have copious amounts of food and beverage. Their platters are heaping. They come courtesy of College Street Bagels. So make sure you load up before you go and stick around after the readings. Thank you also to the Canada Council, the Ontario Arts Council, Ontario Creates. They are helping keeping us going as well in significant ways. So without further ado, I introduce you to Michael Helm. He's a fiction writer, an essayist. He's been a BRIC editor for 20 years. His books, as you know, are After James, Cities of Refuge, In the Place of Last Things, nominated for every award you can imagine. A wonderful, hilarious, guiding soul for this editorial board. Please say hello to Michael Helm.
Thank you. Yeah, you're supposed to say author of like 4 books, including my last 2, but not actually say any titles. That was the deal. But now that you've said the titles, people can rush up and buy those as well, I'm sure. I just want to make sure everybody can hear me at the back. Lori's voice, it's okay. What about on the right? Can people hear me on the right? It's important. All right. It's part of the charm of literary events in Toronto, going back like long-standing tradition that they've been like they're not mic'd, or maybe the readers have some kind of like weird hostility toward the mic, or are unaware there is a mic, but we're not going to do that. We've got to figure it out here. So thanks for being with us, including those of you I'm going to gesture. I'm gesturing to the. There's actually a laptop up here. If you don't see that, to the live stream. Thank you. Or people looking in afterwards in the future. Hello, the future. Don't tell us what's going on there. We don't want to know. And some of you might be far afield. To our American friends, we want you to know we're thinking about you all, but we aren't thinking about all of you the same way. And for those Americans looking in from the past, hey, thanks for jazz. Thanks for Peak TV. Speaking of issues, we're happy here to be in Martha's joint, this beautiful venue launching 114. And Lori's already thanked everyone on the masthead, but I want to thank two people in particular. I mean, it's a jolt working here. I don't really do the work that some of the real workers do. And I just want to point out a couple of them who've been here almost as long as I have and have been working especially hard. And one is the super gifted Mark Beck, who's been designing for years what is, let's face it, the most fetching literary magazine anywhere. Mark, you have to wave, Mark, or hold your shoulder there. Yeah. I mean, it's true. Like if you go through back issues of the magazine, they're beautiful objects, right? And apparently that's how we're told in the future the species will be appreciating literature because we are apparently forgetting to read. It takes a lot of talent and work, and we're lucky to have Mark and his Mark nature as such a big part of our operation. And I also want to thank Lori Graham, who over the years has worked her way up from switchboard assistant to exalted ruler. And these talents as a poet do her no good at all. And, the task of sort of four-dimensional cat herding that is running a literary magazine in Canada. You should be running the world. She's really wonderful. In fact, you might mention that to her at some point in the evening. Thank you, Lord. We're very happy to have three of the contributors to the issue here tonight to read for us. And here they come. I'll introduce them before each reader. Kenzie Allen is a Haudenosaunee poet and multimodal artist. Her work has appeared in Poetry Magazine, Boston Review, Narrative, the Paris Reviews, The Daily, and other venues. Her work has won the James Welch Prize, the 92nd Street Y Discovery Joan Lehman Jacobson Poetry Prize, the 49th Parallel Award, and the Sundress Poetry Broadside Prize. And her first book, Cloud Missives, which just came out, a few months ago, was a finalist in the National Poetry Series. Kenzie's work is especially tactile. She's found interesting ways to make art from the physical, to make concrete the historical, and yet considering the variety of art she practices, the sense in toto is of a great fluidity of poetry in the largest sense unbounded. Born in West Texas, she now shares time between Toronto, Stavanger, Norway, and the Oneida Reservation in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Please welcome Kenzie Allen.
It would not be poetry in 2024 if I weren't reading from my phone. So here we go. Thank you so much. Seguli Swagwake. Hello to all of you, my friends. I'm just gonna go Otnio Duhadi. How's it going along? Good. This is fine. Okay, so I was going to read two poems, one from the issue and one from the book at large. This is kind of interesting because I've never gotten to read this poem aloud because this poem hasn't gotten as much love until the wonderful team at Brick pulled it from the wreckage, if you will, of the book. So this is in which I recall the flood as pink lightning. To the boy who held me down, said, shh, shh, it's okay. And later took up with the church for heavenly glory, not for what he did. I have no complaints. I've looked for alone time, hours, and only found brambles in the mouth of an off-road. I know your apartment letter, but not which floor you live on. Once, I climbed on top of my sweetheart, scooped in the seat of a white Ford, gridded and worn, and I said, shh, and shit, and we have to get a backup plan. That night, the sand turned to cotton, to sand in my teeth. We get a plan. We get back in the car. The grit turns to glass. Every time I ask the elevators to stop on my floor, I press the buttons hard, like thumbprints in a browned thigh, skin memory ghosted white, like a lit up MRI. Everything on my body has been tested. Everything passed inspection at one time or another. Now my ring finger is twisted leftward, and my wrists have toothy little marks where something must have nipped the derma deeper than intended. And my eyes slip sideways when the room brightens, and my nails never recovered from bitten down to the quick. And these days, I only wince when you're not looking. And there's that one brown river swollen over my open shoulder blades, which says, here it struck badly once. Maybe it will never strike again. And this is Love Song to the Man announcing powwows and rodeos. It's always the same guy, and he says things like, job, job. Next up is Tiny Tots. Okay, so Love Song to the Man announcing powwows and rodeos. How your voice over salted flanks licks tender. And when you say, young ones are future, hitches left like making room. And when you name the horses, booms low, storms a kick-up moan, chases them down as spotted silverfish in a round pen quarrel, then shoot back out the entrance, spotlit and away in a shuddering. Name me a jingle dress in neon and gold leaf. Bespeak moccasins for my turning feet, with my mother's best beading. Paint her having sown those seeds onto leather backing all of my life. Welcome the crowd to my birth, and the language to my ears early, my name early. Wampum, and the good spirits everywhere and early. Don't send me home without a round of applause, if not a title, if not a good ride and a fast time. You're welcome.
Thank you, Kenzie. So I've heard you read several times now, and you should also. Kenzie hosted a lunch or what was it, a party for York faculty or something at one point, and I walked into the kitchen and there were the names of all the poems and the book she was working on, all in little cards on her wall there, and the wall itself was one of the most beautiful things I've seen. So you should bring that wall with you. Your poetry murder board. You should probably travel with that too. All right. Kayal Vizhi currently lives in Toronto. Her work has appeared in the New Quarterly, Litro, Room, Inwards Magazine, and Press, and elsewhere. It has been variously long or shortlisted for the CBC Poetry Prize, the Montreal Poetry Prize, and the CBC Creative Nonfiction Prize. We're happy to have Kayal's piece with its layerings of the private and social, the real and imagined, thought and the play of thought, and the ways language and story sometimes fit into us, and we fit or not into the world. Please welcome Kayal Vizhi.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to be reading from my essay, The Reader, which is part of a collection of lyric essays I've been working on since I was 21. I'm not 21 anymore, and I don't know if this is the final form, but this is where I'm at, and I'm excited to share it with you. And I'm really thankful to Alison Lasorda for giving me the opportunity to share my work with Brick. And also to Rachel and Lori and Liz and Orly for being so generous with their reading of my work. So I'm going to read a brief excerpt from this essay. The girl is a reader, first and foremost. She lives in an apartment in a city that is not the city of her childhood. She waits tables and attends classes on English literature. Daniel Gluck, the elderly interlocutor in Ali Smith's Autumn, urges his young neighbor Elizabeth Demand to always be reading something. Even when we're not physically reading, how else will we read the world? When the girl watches people on the train, or when she reads the waves, paying attention to how Virginia Woolf gleans order from chaos and turns a thought into a comet of a sentence, she encounters a sense of kinship with the words. She reads a book, lives in it, carries it with her onto the bus. The book is a sun for a few hours or days, and in its margins she resides. She has never read to escape. She does not believe in reading as a means of leaving the world behind. Rather, reading is how she roots the body in this room. Always after reading a great book, she feels as she goes out into the street the need to offer to others what a sentence, and within the sentence, two women sitting at a table, sly and earnest, the back and forthing of voices can provide a kind of friendship. Before the girl is a reader, she is a daughter. To the girl, they are not parents, but mother and father, separate. Just like in the city she's moved to, she is separate, without ancestors, an individual. Having not been a child in the city, she can temporarily absent herself from daughterhood's insidious reach. Being an individual, she can make her own meanings. She can walk down a street, regard the shop windows, the rocking horse outside St. Vincent de Paul. It's a cold spring day. A waiter sweeps the floor at the Flying Banzini. A dog barks. A crowd waits for a bus. The girl examines an armoire left on the pavement. She forgets her mother's eye, the red of it, her father's hands, how he had later sat on the living room floor, rocking, weeping. She is moved by the light in the streets. The girl sidesteps its tendency to transport her to a time when she would crouch beneath her grandfather's hose and feel the water on her back as he watered the garden. When the coolness became overwhelming, she would run across the earth as leaves clung to her ankles, only slowing to step in the mud and feel its silken ooze. She would resume running through the heat as the sun drank the water on her skin, running past her mother who stood by the doorway holding a towel, her young mother, disillusioned even then. The doggedness with which childhood pursues her down the street, interrupting her belief that she is an individual. How it coaxes the light coming through a window into becoming a wound, agitates the girl who does not want to be a daughter. I am a reader before I'm a daughter, she thinks, walking down a side street. Thank you.
José Teodoro is one of Canada's most accomplished multi-directional artists. He's a writer and director working in theater, cinema, music, and literature, and an essayist of the kind one of the old masterfolk would have called immensely vicarious. His prose has appeared in Brick, The Fiddlehead, and Subterrane. His plays include Cloudless and Binary Star, and he makes records with composer-musician Stephen Lyons as Applied Science. Their debut, Screen Door, is available online and on vinyl via Off-Season Records. In this issue, Jose has a short, beautiful, vivid piece that raises the past from the dead and makes it twice alive, not just for what we can know of it, but too for what we can't. We're very happy to have him back in our pages, and it turns out it's also his birthday, so let's welcome Jose and wish him a happy birthday.
Thank you very much, Michael, for those kind words. The name of the band is Applied Science. Just so you know. Silence. It's a play on words. But seriously, thank you very much. Thank you to everyone at Brick. I know everyone says this, and I know writers will say anything to get published, but it's a really special thrill to be included in this publication that has meant so much to me for so long and includes so many writers that are a great inspiration to me. So thank you, everyone at Brick. And thank all of you for being here on this blustery December night. Thank you for being here so we can celebrate art and literature and free alcohol and snacks. I really appreciate seeing so many of you here. The only other thing I'll say before I read is that it occurs to me that the piece I'm going to read tonight, the piece that is in this new issue of Brick, contains a great many uncertainties. But one thing that is very certain about the piece is the setting in which it takes place, and it takes place in a time and a space where people found themselves, individuals, families, communities, languages, histories, found themselves the subject of terrifying destruction from forces of oppression. And for that reason, I would just like to dedicate this little reading to far too many people in the world today that are also suffering in similar situations. There are so many of them, but I'm thinking in particular, of course, of people in Ukraine, Palestine, Lebanon, and Syria. And I'm going to read from this brand new, unbroken issue of Brick. This piece is called Discrepancies Regarding the Disappearance of José Teodoro de San José. José was the elder of the two brothers by 3 years. He was also the taller, more muscular, and some suggest more handsome of the two, or at least by country bumpkin standards, the more dandyish, a campesino galán, sporting a smart little mustache that he kept neatly trimmed. At age 13, he began his first tenure as a farmhand, picking and sorting stone fruit for one of the region's handful of wealthy landowners. At age 18, he performed his military service. He may have done this in Malaga or in the Pyrenees. After 2 years, he returned and he may have found work once more as a farmhand. It may have been the same farm. He may have returned from his military service with an empty rifle cartridge into which he drilled a hole through that hole passed a simple short chain, and he may have given this empty rifle cartridge on a chain as a good luck charm to his brother, Antonio, who then went off to perform his military service in North Africa. On occasion, while working on the farm, Jose may have provided basic medical treatment to sick or injured horses, donkeys, or mules. He may have loved animals. He may have been mentored informally and without financial support by a sympathetic veterinarian. He was not given steady work on the farm. He may have requested higher wages from his employer and thereafter been given no further work by this employer. He may have stolen some money or inherited some money from someone who may or may not have been a relative, or he may have provided someone with a special service and was rewarded with money. In early 1936, he acquired 2 empty warehouses in the center of Barcarota. No one knows how he got these warehouses. He may have been single, but it's possible he had a wife no one knew about, perhaps a child no one knew about. This happens sometimes. He may have been having an affair with a married woman, may have secretly fathered the child of a married woman, and may have been in danger of being beaten or killed by a cuckolded husband, or he may have had a secret affair with a man, which also happens sometimes. He may have found an opportunity to disappear during a time when so many were being disappeared, to make a clean getaway, to abandon a life going nowhere, or to abandon the woman he may have wed, or the child he may have fathered, perhaps a product of a loveless marriage, or to abandon a secret love affair that would inevitably result in his being beaten or murdered or shamed. No one will rule that out. By early 1936, he had those 2 empty warehouses, yet seemed to have no plans for them, or none he spoke of, and he seemed to have no money. He almost certainly would have been desperate for enough work to put food on the table, any table, to support a wife and child, or to support his parents and brother, or to simply support himself. He may have been ill. He may have been starving. Many laborers in the region were, since after the establishment of the Second Republic, landowners still decided on wages, and the wages were, by any standard, slave wages. Jose may have been a member of the Socialist Land Workers Federation, who demanded the expropriation of large estates, or latifundios, and the creation of collectives, which represented a further step toward socialism the Republic was not yet willing to take. He may have been one of thousands of peasants who were loaded into trucks at gunpoint and deported hundreds of miles from their homes and left without nourishment or resources of any kind. He may have fled Spain in search of a new life in Colombia or Argentina, and upon making this decision, or upon his arrival in one of the above countries, he may have changed his name. He may have fled to Portugal, whose frontier was mere miles from his hometown, and changed his name. He may have refused to be recruited into the nationalist forces and for that reason murdered. He may have been in Badajoz, the nearest city to his hometown, in August 1936, when 4,000 civilian and military supporters of the Second Republic were murdered by nationalist forces following the seizure of the city, and he may have been one of those 4,000. He may have been murdered for no other reason than having said something critical of the military coup, having read a liberal newspaper, having owned a radio. He may have been thrown from a cliff or a high bridge, shot against a cemetery wall, or deposited into a disused mine shaft. He may have been buried along with dozens of others in one of many fosas comunes, and he may be there still, reduced to bones among other bones, as those graves are still being unearthed deep into the 21st century, decades after the end of the dictatorship. He may have, if he were among the murdered, spent his final moments wondering how he, a country bumpkin from a poor family, found himself in the midst of such atrocity. He may have been relieved to know at the very least that Antonio was also not there, also suffering, also on the cusp of death, also soon to be tossed into a fossa común. And he may have been blessed by a vision of the future, of his brother sitting alone in those empty warehouses in the dusk light, or of his brother becoming a foreman in the local flour mill, or of his brother getting married to a girl from Malaga and having many children, some of whom, while still very young, would sense their country had passed into a frozen state, or rather a state of retardation, a state left behind while the rest of the world hurtled forward, would sense there was no life for them there, would thus seek a life somewhere beyond these frontiers. He may be alive somewhere still, no longer a Spaniard, no longer hearing his family name, a man in another country with a past blacked out, a past erased, a past no one speaks of, and memories so faded from neglect or negation that not even he recalls the beauty of the hills at dusk in the arid, impoverished province from which he came. Thank you.
I was just sort of composing in my head, trying to figure out what it is that happens at, these events when I wish I'd got this composed in my head before I'm trying to say what it is, but just the gathering matters a lot, right? And it matters more and more every time we get to do it. It seems to me in the past few years, and the language made present through voice is a different experience of the magazine. And then another experience, of course, is to be alone with our 40-watt brain, lighting the page and encountering it that way. I really thank you all for coming out. And this space is great too. Thanks to Martha again and Flying Books. I'm going to mumble my way into the back, but I want to thank again Kenzie, Kayal, and Jose. Thank you for your readings.
That is all. Eat, drink, buy. Oh, yeah.